Good evening. Welcome to the Torrance City Council meeting for February 8th, 2022. Call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Ashcraft.
Here.
Councilmember Chen.
Present.
Councilmember Griffith.
Here.
Councilmember Kalani.
Present.
Councilmember Matucci.
Here.
Councilmember Walser.
Here.
Mayor Fury.
Here. The council will now recess to closed session to confer with the city manager and the city attorney on the agenda matters listed under 14A, conference with labor negotiator, and 14B, threat to public services or facilities. A closed session on these matters is authorized by California Government Code sections 54957.6 and 54957. We will return at 6:30. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Torrance City Council meeting for February 8th, 2022. We've been in an executive session. Mr. Chaparyan, is there anything to report?
Good evening, Your Honor. There is nothing to report.
I call the meeting back to order, and I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We're now in our final stretch of the 4th annual Torrance Serves Service Leaders Celebration, which runs through February 13th. This afternoon, we were just 5% below our goal of 175,000 hours. These hours can be completed anytime during 2022. During the current pandemic, we understand volunteering is a little bit more difficult for some, but we ask you to explore opportunities and connect with our local Torrance area nonprofits through Torrance Cares Connection. Pledging your volunteer hours is simple, it's easy, and really only takes about a minute. Visit torranceca.gov/serve to find out more about the celebration and make your pledge. You just go on our website, it'll pop right up, click on there, and you can put your information in really quickly. During our last city council meeting, City Council voted to approve staff to come back with an agenda item to submit for voter consideration for a local 1/2 cent sales tax ballot measure for the June 7th election. And that we will do next week, February 15th, 2022. I ask you to tune in, and in the meantime, I urge you all to join the conversation by exploring recordings of past workshops, informational videos, and frequently asked questions by visiting torranceca.gov/essential services. Again, thank you all for joining us tonight via Facebook, YouTube, live stream, or City Cable. Tonight, we will continue with our hybrid meeting model with City Council and staff meeting in person and the public tuning in remotely. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, Governor Newsom's proclamation of a state of emergency on March 4th, 2020, and the order of the health officer of the County of Los Angeles Department of Public Health, which was revised January 5th, 2022. The City Council meeting will be in the hybrid format. The City Council and staff will meet in person, as I mentioned, and in order to protect the public, the City Council and staff, the City Council chamber is closed to the public in the interest of maintaining appropriate social distancing and in order to reduce the risk of spreading COVID-19. The hybrid model of City Council meetings will allow the community to participate from the safety and comfort of your own homes. Much has happened regarding COVID since we last met. New strains have come to surface, and we've hit record numbers in COVID cases. And that doesn't even include the at-home positive testers. The best way to minimize COVID-19 risk and keep your family and friends safer is to get vaccinated if you are eligible. Protect those not yet eligible for vaccination, such as young children, by getting yourself and other eligible people around them vaccinated. Be sure to wear a well-fitting mask over your nose and mouth if you are in the public indoor setting. Remember, outdoors is safer than indoors. Try to avoid crowded, poorly ventilated spaces. If you are sick or have symptoms, we ask you to please stay home and recover. And finally, testing can give you information about your risk of spreading COVID-19. Consider using a self-test before joining indoor gatherings with others who may not be from your household. We, the City of Torrance, continues to run normal business for our residents and community. To keep Torrance moving forward, it is important to us that you have an opportunity to voice your comments during this pandemic. Public emails will continue to have a deadline of 2 p.m. on the day of the council meeting you wish to comment on. Thank you to those of you who have met today's deadline. They've all been forwarded to the council as supplemental material and will be entered into the public record. Of course, any emails submitted after the deadline will still be added to the public record, but clearly we can't consider them this evening. For those of you tuning in via Facebook, YouTube, live stream, or City Cable, you may participate with this meeting by calling into the public input hotline. The number is 310-618-2404, and it will be displayed on the screen. Please be patient when calling in and be aware that our call center is very, very busy taking multiple phone calls so that you may get a busy signal when calling in. If that's the case, we ask you to please try calling back in a moment or two. Tonight, there will be 2 opportunities for oral communication. You have up to 1 minute per speaker for items not on the agenda or those that are on the consent calendar for a period of up to 15 minutes. Remember, you can only participate under oral communications once during this meeting. Also, comments on administrative matters as they are considered, we allow up to 1 minute per speaker, and comments on public hearings allow up to 2 minutes per speaker. Staff will notify you when your time begins. Time limits will be strictly enforced to ensure equal opportunity. We request that speakers keep your remarks brief and limited to the topic of discussion. At the end of the meeting, we'll have another 15 minutes for oral communication number 2, which will allow up to 1 minute per speaker. City Clerk, have emails received before 2 p.m. today been processed as supplemental material and provided to the council?
Yes, Your Honor, they have.
Okay, then we move on with our agenda. The first items will be a flag salute led by Councilmember Ashcraft, followed by an invocation by Councilmember Chen. I ask everybody in the audience to please stand.
Please join me in the salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance.
Lord, thank you for the opportunity as we gather once again to deliberate and make decisions as representatives of our city. Give us clarity of mind to review the facts and data, understand all issues before us, and pursue what's best for the entire community. Thank you for all our frontline health workers and first responders who have tirelessly kept us safe. We ask for your continued presence to guide us with wisdom and courage. Amen.
Thank you, Bo. We'll take a report of the city clerk on the posting agenda.
Your Honor, this agenda was posted on Monday, January 31st.
Thank you. May we have a motion to waive further reading?
Move to waive further readings.
Second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Announcement of withdrawn, deferred, and/or supplemental items.
Good evening, Your Honor. Aram, Chaparyan, City Manager. We have supplement materials available on the city website at torranceca.gov for the following items. Item 7A, 7, oral communications. 9D, City Manager adopt resolution amending resolution number 2019-84 to add language regarding PORAC retiree medical trash joiner agreement to fire safety management memorandum of understanding. Item 9E, community services, provide direction regarding options for 2022 cultural services and Torrance Theater Company summer programming. And lastly, Night F, Armed Forces Day Special Standing Committee, discuss and provide direction of 61st Annual Armed Forces Day Parade and Celebration. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Might also mention that tonight we're going to take item 9F out of order immediately after the consent calendar. Council committee meetings and announcements. I have a few. First, with the concurrence of council, I'd like to request that staff return with an item to subsidize the fees for the use of the Victor E. Benstead Plunge for the Ducky Dash virtual event sponsored by the American Cancer Society. Last year, the event was quite successful, even with COVID-19 challenges and facilitating a virtual event. The American Cancer Society would like a repeat performance of this event and will adhere to all COVID-19 guidelines. We have consensus for that. The next item, State Attorney General is set to issue an official title and summary for a measure restricting voters' input and local taxing authority. Currently, efforts are underway to gather the required signatures for this measure to appear on the November ballot. The League of California Cities, businesses, and labor organizations are making a concerted effort to oppose this measure. This measure would have a detrimental impact on local control and limit local revenue authority. This measure would limit voter input, authority, and accountability, restrict local fee authority to provide local services, restrict authority of state and local governments to issue fines and penalties for violations of the law, restrict local tax authority to provide local services. In addition, this bill would give wealthy corporations a major loophole to avoid paying their fair share, forcing local residents and taxpayers to pay more. It allows corporations to dodge enforcement when they violate environmental, health, public safety, and other laws. It jeopardizes vital local and state services. It opens the door for frivolous lawsuits, bureaucracy, and red tape that will cost taxpayers and hurt our communities. It undermines voter rights, transparency, and accountability. For the past several years, there's been a direct attack on local control, revenues, and autonomy, and it continues. Local government has a pulse on their community and knows what is in the best interest in their community. With City Council's concurrence, I would like to recommend that the city joins the League of California Cities, businesses, and labor organizations, and numerous cities throughout the state of California. With concurrence of City Council, I'd like to recommend an item to provide summary and impact of this ballot measure to the city and adopt a resolution to oppose this ballot measure as it's presented to council. Time is of the essence, and it's imperative that we oppose this proposed initiative or ballot measure that would have a significant impact on local control. Local government has to remain whole, vigilant, and united to fight this ongoing effort to minimize local control. We have a concurrence? Bring it back? Again, we have concurrence. And my last one is the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority will be conducting the annual Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count on Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022, housed out of the Ken Miller Recreation Center. Data collected from the count is used to allocate resources to those experiencing homelessness. The Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority continues to recruit volunteers for the new date. Remember, this was originally scheduled for January, but because of the COVID impacts, it was canceled. You don't have to have any prior experience to volunteer, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, volunteers are being limited to 2 to 3 individuals from the same household or pod. Minor children will not be allowed to participate in this year's count. Families can register together at theycountwillyou.org. One word, theycountwillyou.org. If you have any questions about the registration process or to confirm your registration status, because you may have registered for the January event, if you're interested in doing this month, we ask you to contact Nancy Wilcox at nancywilcox777@gmail.com. Again, it's nancywilcox777@gmail.com. And by following guidelines, participation is safe and easy. On to Councilmember Griffiths.
Thank you, Mayor. As the liaison to the Torrance Sister City Association, I wanted to share an announcement about a job opportunity. There's an opportunity for someone to take a job as an English teacher in Kashiwa, Japan. The Torrance Sister City Association is seeking qualified applicants for one high school English teacher in Kashiwa, Japan, the sister city of Torrance. A minimum one-year contract runs from August 1st, 2022 to July 31st, 2023. The contract is renewable for a maximum 3-year assignment. The pay, this is the good part, 4,800,000 yen per year, plus additional benefits. Qualifications are the applicant must live or work in Torrance, be fluent in written and spoken English, hold a bachelor's degree plus a teaching credential or have demonstrated teaching experience, possess a keen interest in the Japanese language and culture, and represent the Torrance Sister City Association and foster the goals and objectives of the English Teacher Exchange Program. If you are interested in applying for this fantastic opportunity, please go to the Torrance Sister City website at www.torrancesistercity.org and look for the English teacher opportunity flyer on the website. Thank you very much.
Domo arigato. Councilmember Kalani.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. The Employee Relations and Public Safety Committee will meet Wednesday, February 16th, 2022. Staff will be presenting the Torrance Fire Department annual update, which will highlight the accomplishments of the fire department in 2021 and identify goals for 2022. We invite the community to join us for this meeting via Zoom. The link can be accessed by visiting torrance.ca.gov/council-committees/employee-relations and clicking on the agenda for February 16th, 2022 meeting date. This item will be presented to City Council from the Employee Relations and Public Safety Committee at a subsequent council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on the calendar, and the next item will be the oral communication number 1, which is limited to 15-minute period of time. This portion is reserved for comment on items under the consent calendar or items that are not on the agenda. Under the Ralph M. Brown Act, City Council cannot act on items raised during public comment, but may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed, request clarification, or refer the item to staff. Speakers under orals, as I mentioned earlier, you're limited to either oral communication 1 or oral communication number 2, and in any event, no longer than 1 minute per speaker. I'll turn this over to the call center. 6:45.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll begin to transfer the callers. Linda R., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. California has a true housing crisis that requires strategies to protect existing affordable housing. One is a rent stabilization ordinance. Skyline Mobile Park is an age-restricted and affordable community of more than 350 senior citizens. Most homeowners here planned to make Skyline their forever home. A recent change in park ownerships was followed immediately by a very steep monthly rent increase. This has created homeowner insecurity and taken an emotional toll on those on fixed incomes who fear being unable to afford to remain in their homes. Affordability is key to allowing these homeowners to avoid the punishing condition of home insecurity and even perhaps homelessness. Please help Torrance's vulnerable communities by moving to enact a rent stabilization ordinance. Thank you.
Mayor, that caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Stephanie P., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm to demand justice in the name of Christopher Mitchell. He was murdered over 3 years ago by Torrance police, and to this moment, you have done absolutely nothing to address this heinous act, an act that was committed under the leadership of the police department and with the apparent approval of the city council. Fire officers Matthew Concannon, Anthony Chavez, and Brian Kawamoto. Establish a civilian oversight commission, a civilian oversight commission, one that provides actual accountability for the police department, one that gives community members an avenue for recourse when they are abused by police, one that actually inches toward making Torrance a decent community, particularly for Black and brown folks. I yield my time.
Mayor, moving on to the next caller. Sheila B., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
I'm once again calling for, and we've been talking to you about this every week that you've had a city council meeting for 3 years now. Every week since Matthew Concannon and Anthony Chavez killed Christopher DeAndre Mitchell within 15 seconds, his mother and the community have been calling and walking into your meetings asking you to do simple, reasonable things. Create a civilian oversight commission and fire the officers who killed Christopher DeAndre Mitchell. And you refuse to do those things. And here we are 3 years later, and all of you have mud on your faces because you refuse to do basic things and listen to Black women. Now we're sitting here, and the DA is reopening a case. Now we're sitting here, and a messaging scandal has come out with 30 officers who have sent racist, sexist, anti-Semitic.
Mayor, the caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Sarah B., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Yeah, like the others, I am calling in to talk about Christopher DeAndre Mitchell and to raise up his name and to force all of us to remember him. Last week, you talked longer about police officers' retirement and pension plans than about Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, more than you've ever talked about him. The 30 officers involved in the messaging scandal and in Christopher's murder, including Anthony Chavez, Matthew Concannon, and Brian Kawamoto, need to be fired immediately, not just placed on leave. In Matthew Concannon's text from your city's scandal, he texted that he and others successfully lied about an officer-involved shooting. The only officer-involved shooting reported that he was involved in was when he shot and killed Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, but you still refuse to do anything about it. Plus, a civilian oversight commission for the police department needs to be created now. The emphasis is on civilian, not the police's new chief advisor.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Karina K., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
I'm calling in once again to demand that the officers who murdered Christopher DeAndre Mitchell within 15 seconds of approaching him be fired. It's 2022. Like, your inaction is unacceptable. Your absolute racism is unacceptable now. So nobody gives a shit about however else you try to clean this up, whatever the fuck else you put on your agenda. You're white supremacist assholes, okay? You need to do what the community has been saying for the last 3 years. Fire the officers who murdered Christopher DeAndre Mitchell unjustly and stop being the racist motherfuckers and pricks that you are. Create a civilian oversight commission like you were instructed to do by a grand jury. Don't make any other bullshit department, organizations, or bureaus to do the same racist shit that you guys perpetuate. Nobody do what the community said to do. Justice for Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, and fuck every single one of y'all.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Michelle R., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
I'm calling in solidarity with BLM and Sherlyn to get justice in the name of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell through civilian oversight and by firing and prosecuting killer cops Anthony Chavez, Matthew Buchanan, and Brian Colamoto. It's now another year, and we're still here to hold you accountable for your continued inaction and grave incompetence in acknowledging and addressing the historic race problem and culture of bigoted hatred in Torrance PD. To continue to allow officers who have unabashedly spewed hate speech to work for this city, especially those who have murdered people of color, is a clear representation of your priorities and total disinterest in protecting the lives and well-being of our diverse communities. Your incompetence and outright racism is despicable. Fire all officers involved in this shameful hate speech scandal and all killer cops who endanger our community. We want justice, and we won't stop till we get it. Justice for Christopher.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Pat V., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
As with the callers that have been all running before me, I'm also calling to once again demand justice for Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, that you fire officers Anthony Chavez, Matthew Buchanan, and Brian Colamoto, as well as the other remaining 30 who were involved in the racist text scandal, and that you establish a civilian oversight commission. It's really interesting hearing you talking about that ballot measure a little bit ago and making a comment about how elected officials and city officials know what's in the best interest of the city, but you've proven time and again that you have no idea what's in the best interest of your city by the fact that you have not taken any action to follow through on these demands that we have repeated to you week after week after week for 3 years, that these officers are still part of your police department, that they have not been fired. That is not in the best interest of your city. The fact that you have police officers sending racist texts and murdering people in your...
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. JL, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Just like the previous caller, you guys should be absolutely embarrassed at this point. We have been calling for 3 years plus, and our demands are clear. Fire the officers that killed Christopher DeAndre Mitchell. Fire the officers. That's a simple demand. The fact that you have the audacity to even say that you're here for the best interest of your community is a bull-faced lie. It's a bull-faced lie. It's a white lie. White people tend to lie about a bunch of stuff, and this is another one. You guys lie about caring about the community. Clearly, the fuck you don't. So create a civilian oversight so that we can actually care about the community, something that you lack. You lack the ability to care. We're sitting on that precedent of our ancestors on being Black History Month, and the fact that you guys continue to insult our ancestors and us is letting us know that white supremacy is all through you. And so you're not going to change. I know that you're not going to change. That's why you're not going to.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Porkchop, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy. I had the opportunity last week to go a ride along with our fire department unit R94. We went all over Hollywood Riviera, where Pat Furry does not live there, but we're still looking for all over Hollywood Riviera with absolutely no reason. If you want to see this night trip, watch my YouTube channel, Andy Porchop, and you can see the services our fire department provide us for all the money we pay for. So Pat Furry, you can stop begging for money because we have not just enough money for the essential services, but we have money to gallivanting all over in Hollywood Riviera. Watch my video and you can see our beautiful, beautiful work our firemen provide us. The services all over.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. TJ, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so definitely mirroring all the sentiments of previous callers, Anthony Chavez, Matthew Concanon, and Brian Kawamoto need to be fired for the murder of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell. 3 years ago, your racist Torrance County police officers killed someone within 15 seconds, not even letting Christopher speak or try to get out of the car. And again, you're proven to be racist police officers killed someone within 15 seconds. And it is deplorable, and it's racism. Just think about the different ways police approach white people versus the instant murder that happened to Christopher. And this will continue until committees like yours actually do something. Whiteness, white supremacy, racism thrive and will always thrive in oppression. And with the recent death of Amir Locke being killed within 9 seconds.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Mary Ann D., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
What does it mean when history repeats itself? It means you failed to learn from it. We have thoroughly framed how y'all are repeating history through your actions over the last 3 years, and it still hasn't penetrated. 3 years, Sherilyn Haynes has had to suffer the loss of her child every day, and the ever-consistent harm, continuous harm that you inflict by your lack of action and your dismissive attitude. Still, there's no civilian oversight commission. Still, these officers are on Torrance PD. They've been given raises and promotions and awards. And even though they continue to do egregious things against the community, you still haven't fired them. Fire Matthew Concanon, fire Anthony Chavez, fire Brian Kawamoto, create a civilian oversight commission, a true civilian oversight.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Danielle J., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Greetings. The Torrance Art Museum's exhibits Quadra and Windslim will be on display through Saturday, March 12th. The TAM Advocates will feature a series of Quadrant Tema Talks at 1 p.m. on certain Fridays via Zoom. This Friday, February 11th, Carolyn Mason will discuss Pilosis Nuchis Orbis. On February 18th, Kong Bao Nguyen will discuss Repetition of Difference. On February 25th, Joy Lehman Morris will discuss Nocturnal 1. On March 4th, Lisa Rockford will discuss Out of Bounds. To register or to become a member of the Torrance Art Museum Advocates, go to tamadvocates.com and click on the link Tema Talks. All Tema Talks are recorded. You can view past talks on that site or go to Tema Advocates YouTube channel. Exciting news, Torrance was represented at January's LA Art Show. Memorial to the Future, curated by TAM's Max Presnell, was part of the collaboration with Diverse Art LA. It's now on the museum's patio and looks very prominent at the museum at the event. For more info, please visit torranceartmuseum.com.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up, and this concludes oral communications for 15 minutes oral communication number 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. We move on with the agenda. The consent calendar is next. Does anyone on the council wish to move any item off the consent calendar? I see none, and there was no request from the community, so I would ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar in its entirety.
I move to approve the consent calendar in its entirety.
I second that motion.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. As we mentioned at the outset of the meeting, we're taking item 9F out of order. And at this time, I'm calling 9F. That's from the Armed Forces Day Special Standing Committee. Councilmember Ashcraft.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The Armed Forces Day Special Standing Committee met on January 21st for an update on the planning activities for the 61st Armed Forces Day Parade and celebration. Staff discussed concerns regarding staffing shortage, military participation, and contract timelines. The Council Committee requested staff to further research and bring an item to City Council before contract deadlines. Item 9F is a recommendation of the Armed Forces Day Committee that City Council discuss and provide direction on the program and events of the 2022 Armed Forces Day Parade and celebration. Staff, I believe you have a presentation for us?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. I am Lieutenant Cody Charlie of the Torrance Police Department. I oversee the traffic division and special events at Torrance PD. Tonight, staff will present you with a participation status and planning status updates for the 2022 Armed Forces Day Parade and celebration. Next slide. One more. Thank you. We'll be starting with the participation status of the confirmed military and DoD groups. As you can see on the slide, the U.S. Army, Fort Irwin, U.S. Army National Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, the U.S. Air Force, and the U.S. Navy have all committed to participation in this year's parade. Unfortunately, the United States Marine Corps is unable to support our event dates. Of note, at this time, all confirmed military branches cannot promise a level of participation or confirmed what assets they'll be bringing to the parade. The next slide will be Sergeant Koenig, and he'll be discussing our staffing levels.
Good evening, Sergeant Dave Koenig with the Torrance Police Department Traffic and Special Events Division. On this slide here, what I did is I broke down the staffing levels from 2019 and then compared it to the current staffing available in 2022, projected out for Armed Forces Day Parade. As you can see, our police lieutenants in 2019, we had 8 lieutenants assigned to work the parade. In 2022, we will have 6 available. We'll be 2 short for lieutenants. For sergeants in 2019, we had 17 assigned to the parade. We currently have 15 sergeants available, again putting us 2 short. For police officers, we had 91 officers assigned to work the parade. We currently will have 55 working available, putting us down 36 short. For police services supervisor, we had 1 assigned to the parade in 2019. We currently still have 1 available, so we're even on that one. Our services officers, we had 9 assigned to the parade in 19. We currently have 10 available, so we're over by 1. For our police cadets, we had 8 cadets in 2019. We currently only have 4 police cadets, so we are 4 short. Our Police Explorer program is really hit, and they assisted a lot in 2019 with filling positions that we couldn't do with officers. Between our police explorers and 6 other agencies, we had 30 police explorers. We currently only have 4 police explorers in Torrance. The other agencies we reached out to have 6 currently, and that puts us at a total of 10, making us 20 short for police explorers. These numbers don't take into consideration of anyone that may be out with COVID. We've been experiencing a lot of COVID-related illnesses recently. Next slide, please. To address the staffing shortages, we looked at some options. One was to reach out for mutual aid through Area G and our surrounding agencies for asking for assistance. And also looking at hiring private security to fill some of the spots that aren't able to be filled by officers. We don't know the availability of the outside agencies at this time. We wouldn't know that until we were closer to the parade date. But they're also, from when I'm talking to them, are also experiencing staffing shortages. Next slide, please. This is a little bit more detailed breakdown of each rank. This is the police officer's rank. Currently, the police department has 154 police officers. Currently, there are 20 police officers out on leave. We have 6 officers that are assigned to light duty, can only work inside the station. We have 8 officers that will be on vacation over the parade weekend. We have 9 that are running time. We have 1 officer on move-up who's an acting sergeant to fill a vacancy we currently have. Our minimum staffing for patrol on parade day for day watch is 10 officers. Our afternoon watch requires 16 officers, and our graveyard shift requires 12. In the radio room on parade day, we're required to have 3 officers on day watch, 3 on afternoons, and 1 on graveyard. That leaves us out of the 154, 65 officers. Now, 10 of those 65 are assigned to graveyard. We don't utilize those officers on parade day because of the hours that they work. So that leaves us a total of 55 officers available to work the parade. This is based on numbers as of January 22nd, or January of 2022. Again, putting us 36 officers short. Next slide, please. So this is the breakdown of the police sergeants. We currently are staffed with 32 sergeants, and that's taking into account the 1 officer that's on move-up as a sergeant right now. Of those 32, 3 are on leave. We have no sergeants working light duty. We have 2 sergeants projected to be on vacation. We have 4 sergeants running time. Our minimum staffing levels on parade day for day watch patrol is 2 sergeants. Our afternoons is 2 sergeants. And our graveyard is 2 sergeants. The radio room doesn't have any sergeants working in there, so for days, afternoon, and graveyard, there are no sergeants assigned to that and required to work it. That leaves us out of the 32, 17. Again, we don't utilize the graveyard officers and sergeants. We have 2 other sergeants assigned to graveyard, so by not utilizing them, it leaves us with 15. So in 2019, we were required to have the 17, as mentioned before. We currently would have 15, putting us 2 sergeants below the required number we had from 2019. Next slide, please. This is the breakdown for our police lieutenants. We are currently staffed with 11 police lieutenants. We have no lieutenants on leave. We have no lieutenants working light duty. None are projected to be on vacation. We have 1 lieutenant who's running time. And then when we get to our minimum staffing levels for patrol, on parade day, we require 1 watch commander lieutenant on both days, afternoons, and graveyard. There are no lieutenants assigned to the radio room, so that's not affected by any of the numbers. Out of the 11, that leaves us 7 available. Again, by not utilizing the 2nd graveyard watch commander lieutenant, that leaves us down to 6. So comparing 2019, where we had 8, we now have 6 available, putting us down 2 below what we need. Next slide, please. This is the breakdown of our services officers who support us. We currently have 28 services officers staffed. We have 3 currently on leave. We have 2 that are working light duty. We have 5 that are scheduled to be on vacation. We have no services officers running time. Our minimum staffing is only affected in the jail. That would be 3 on days, 3 on afternoons, and 2 on graveyard. So out of the 28, that leaves us 12 available. By not utilizing the 2 that are on graveyard, that leaves us 10. Now that means we had 9 working in 2019. We currently have 10 available, so that puts us 1 over. Next slide, please. And this will be handled by Jane Chung for the Research and Training Department.
Good evening, Jane Chung with the Torrance Police Department. The next couple of slides, I'll be going over the budget status. So since 2012, the city has allocated $81,400 for the Armed Forces Day Parade and Celebration for non-labor expenditures, so goods, services, and supplies. However, due to increased cost of goods and services over time, non-labor expenditures have exceeded or close to exceeding that budget, as evident in the city's 3 last parades in 2017, 18, and 19. In 2017, non-labor expenditures totaled $84,787, of which $4,530 was offsetted by the police department's operating budget, as you can see the additional expenses row in the table. In 2018, non-labor expenditures totaled $90,386, of which $8,832 was offset by the police department's operating budget. And in 2019, non-labor expenditures totaled $81,077, of which $10,120 of expenses were paid the following fiscal year. With these numbers, staff estimates that the total non-labor expenditures for 2022 will be approximately $106,497. This estimate assumes additional expenses that will exceed the adopted budget of $81,400, private security costs to address the public safety staffing shortages that were just discussed, and the traditional lineup of program and celebration events. So this assumes a traditional set of parade events. Next slide, please. With regards to the private security, we've used private security services to supplement our personnel in 2017. However, initially thought to be a cost-saving measure, the city has not used these services since because they presented greater challenges that require significant attention and facilitation from city staff. Yet, however, due to the significant staffing shortages, again discussed earlier in the previous slides, private security services may be required to ensure the 2022 Armed Forces Day Parade and Celebration is adequately staffed. And again, that assumes that the traditional program set of events. If that's the case, staff estimates that the private security costs will be approximately $21,876. And then next slide, I apologize. With regards to labor expenditures, several departments incur general fund, the previous slide. With regards to labor expenditures, several departments incur general fund overtime. So that includes police, public works, community services, finance, and the city manager's office. Labor expenditures and overtime totaled approximately $115,000 in 2017, $83,000 in 2018, and $127,000 in 2019. To note, overtime is lower in 2018 due to the elimination of the Armed Forces Day Parade and Celebration barbecue, and higher in 2019 as it reflects both sworn and non-sworn overtime. Staff estimates that the total labor expenditures in 2022 will be approximately $112,926. Next slide, please. So in sum, staff estimates that the total cost of the 2022 Armed Forces Day Parade and Celebration will be approximately $219,423 if the traditional program and celebration events take place. I will now invite Jamie Lee from the City Manager's Office to discuss the donation program.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In past years, there has been an Armed Forces Day donation program in place to offset costs. The proceeds go directly into the Armed Forces Day budget and supplement all expenses citywide, not just the police department. However, due to the uncertainty of the event, the donation program has not yet been advertised. Currently, no donations have been received for the 2022 Armed Forces Day Parade and Celebration. Prior donation program initiatives have ranged from approximately $9,000 and $15,600. Next slide, please. Should we move forward with the Armed Forces Day program, staff is ready to expand the donation campaign. We can expand through the Office of Economic Development contacts, market to the community through social media, e-newsletter, city cable, digital signs, and of course our city council meeting announcements. We will be starting later than our normal timeline, which may affect the amount acquired from the program.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Newman, Police Services Supervisor, Torrance Police Department, Traffic and Special Events. Tonight I'll be talking about the Marriott. As you can see, we asked and were granted an extension until February 14th to sign this contract. The contract was reviewed by the City Attorney's Office, and those corrections have been sent to the Marriott. As you can see, we project the cost for the Marriott to be between $37,304 and $40,834. And this historically has and will take more than half of the $81,400 budget. In talking with the Marriott, They're following the CDC LA County guidelines, and for them, their only restriction at this time is that masks must be worn indoors when not eating or drinking. Next slide, please. As part of the contract, we'll talk about the top one, cancellation 91 to 180 days out prior to arrival. Requires payment of 80% of the room responsibility and 40% of the food and beverages. As of today, we're 101 days away from renting the rooms and 102 days away from the banquet. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown for the Friday night concert. In 2019, there was 500 in attendance per show. There is no minimum for 2022. This next one is based on the attendance and prices in 2019. So for the rental of the room, ticket printing, theater staff, we were charged $3,817. And when we provide food for the band members, that came out to just shy of $684. So again, that cost on the bottom was for 2019 of $4,500. With inflation and whatnot, that will go up for this year. Next slide, please. We'll be talking about the dignitary meet and greet, which is Friday night. In 2019, we had 44 attendants. The contract with the Marriott requires a minimum of 30 persons. You can see there, based on the $68 per person, at 30 is $2,040. But based on the numbers in attendance from 2019, that number goes up to $2,992. And once again, masks must be worn indoors when not eating or drinking. Next slide. The luncheon, which occurs Saturday before the parade. In 2019, we had 296 in attendance. There is no minimum. Once again, based on 2019 attendance and cost, we were charged $1,536 to rent the toy meeting hall, which included the room, the kitchen, coffee service, event setup and tear down, linens, and event manager. And the food cost for that event was $4,850, totaling $6,386 again in 2019. So that number will increase for this year. And the LA County guidelines, which we'll go over on slide 24 and 26. Next slide, please. The parade reviewing stands Saturday. We had 448 in attendance in 2019. There is no minimum on that. We were charged $11,726 for the grandstands, the chairs, the border fencing, and the labor. And the city sound system cost us $3,262. So in 2019, we had a total of $15,024. Once again, that cost will go up. We will talk about LA County guidelines with regards to COVID and the Rose Parade on slide 27. Next banquet, please, or next slide, please. This is the banquet. We had 231 in attendance. As per the contract this year, it's a minimum of 200 persons at $70 a piece, which is $14,000. And there'll be 2 bars, and between the 2 bars, they have to have a minimum sale of $850, taking the total up to $14,850. However, using the 231, that takes it up to $16,170, and I forgot to put the $850 in there, so add $850 to that. And again, the Marriott masks must be worn indoors. Exhibit site. This is a 3-day event. We estimate $10,000 per day. There is no minimum. As far as the associated costs that come with this is the fencing, the trash pickup, the street sweepers, portable restrooms, and this does generate some overtime. And we'll cover LA County guidelines again on the next slides. I would like to take a moment and ask Sergeant Koenig to come up and address the exhibit site area. He has some update for you.
Yes, Sergeant Koenig again. We were recently made aware that the original location for the exhibit site, which is located just east of the lifestyle wing, is potentially not going to be available to us. The mall has potential another client that'll be there for a couple months. So they did offer us a alternative location, which is on the south side of Carson Street near the gym and the old Hometown Buffet. If we do utilize that location, there will be some additional costs that aren't reflected in this presentation. We would, one, have to have additional fencing to secure the exhibit site. We would have additional road closures on Carson Street, which would cause more barricades and more staffing. And then the biggest one would probably be the closure of Carson Street during the parade, or at least a portion of the parade. And the reason for that is when the military vehicles come off the end of the exhibit site, or off the parade, and they go back to the exhibit site, traditionally before we had the road closed from the 5K on all the way to Carson and Madrona. Now the tanks will be required to go down to Carson Street and make a west right-hand turn and back into the exhibit site location located on the south side of the street. Exactly where they would enter, I don't know right now. If it would be off Del Amo Circle East or off of Carson. That's going to depend on the turning radius of the tanks and the other military equipment. But we would have to close the street, probably starting somewhere around 2 o'clock until the conclusion of the parade. And at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Services Supervisor Newman.
Just one thing to add to that, if we do switch to that other location, we will probably not be able to land a helicopter in there, which is one of the biggest draws with regards to the exhibit site. With the trees and the parking barriers and the other things there, it would could cause a serious problem. So, next slide, please. Okay, the 5K Expo site and run. Unknown attendance in 2019, no minimums in 2022. Associated cost from the city would be the portable stage, sound equipment, and additional hours of street closures and the officers or security staffing that. Other than that, other costs associated with 5K are funded by the Torrance Chamber of Commerce and Village Runner. And we'll go over the guidelines in the following slides. Next slide, please. So in researching the LA County guidelines, we highlighted a few of these. Everyone, regardless of vaccination status, must wear a mask. Indoor, public settings, venues, gatherings, and public and private businesses in Los Angeles County. And outdoor mega events, and they describe that as events with over 5,000 attendees, such as concerts, sporting games, and parades, must also wear a mask. Next slide, please. Continuing with the highlights, wear a mask at indoor social gatherings with people outside of your household unless everyone at the gathering is fully vaccinated and has recently tested negative. Wear a mask at crowded outdoor events that are smaller than mega events. Wear a mask while in line to enter, exit, use the bathroom, or to buy food or drinks. Children, wear a mask on playgrounds and other outdoor spaces where they gather if distancing is not possible or practical. Next slide, please. If you are not fully vaccinated, it is strongly recommended that you wear a mask in crowded outdoor settings. If you are in a setting where you are in sustained close contact with other people, you may not be fully vaccinated, considering wearing a mask higher level of protection, such as wearing 2 masks or double masking, or an N95 respirator. This is especially important if you're not fully vaccinated and are in a indoor or crowded outdoor setting. Next slide, please. At the ad hoc committee, we were asked to look into the Rose Parade, and this is the highlight or takeaway from that. Rose Parade required proof of vaccination or negative COVID test within 72 hours prior to the event. And this was to sit in the stands and things of that nature, not necessarily for the people along the parade route. So, and they did require masks in the stands at all times. Okay, next slide. All right, dignitary vehicles. These are the vehicles that we get that shuttle the military flag officers around for the weekend. So those vehicles are normally donated by a local dealership. Having made contact with them today, they are unable to donate those cars this time. Their inventory is so low, once they get certain vehicles in, they're gone within a couple days. So they are unable to donate those cars at this time. So we took that information and started reaching out to local rental agencies. And in looking at that, some agencies aren't even able to get them, but other ones were. And we're looking at approximately $1,000 plus per vehicle for the 3 or 4 day rental, which is an additional $7,000 cost. These cars that I'm talking about now do not include the 28 vehicles that we use for the parade route the day of, for you guys to ride in, the other dignitaries and military people. We have not looked into that yet. Of those 28 vehicles, 24 were donated by dealerships and 4 of them were personal vehicles. Personal vehicles have been used in the past, and we'll continue to use them this year if they're available. Personal vehicles are a great addition to military vehicles and loaned vehicles from local dealerships. Again, we'll follow all CDC and LA County guidelines with regards to wiping them down and trying to mask up and all of that. So I'll turn it back over to Sergeant Koenig one more time.
Again, Sergeant Dave Koenig with Traffic and Special Events Division. We were asked by the ad hoc committee to look into the special events as it relates to municipal codes for the city of Torrance. We've sent out a request to the city attorney office. They got back to us. We have now opened a research project through our research and training department, and that is to look at either amending the current municipal code or creating a new municipal code to deal with all special events within the city of Torrance. And we don't have that information yet. We just started that project last week.
All right, the next portion of the presentation will be options for City Council's consideration. Staff has provided 3 different options, as you can see on the slide. The first being having a traditional Armed Forces Day Parade and celebration, as we've had it in the past. The second would be the modified Armed Forces Day program. And the third would be the postponement of the event. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you have the first 2 options. The first being, again, traditional Armed Forces Day Parade and celebration, keeping everything the same with our concert, dignitary meet and greet, luncheon, parade, reviewing stands, banquet, the 3 days of the exhibit site, and the 5K expo site and run. The modified version next to it, our second option, would be to eliminate the concert, the banquet, and the expo site. Just going back to the first option, the program cost for the first option would be the full price, the $219,423. And then the modified version, if you were to remove those 3 items or 3 events, would be $184,250, and then giving us a savings of $35,173. Of note, staff believes that if the modified program is chosen, there may be a strong possibility that military participation would be drastically reduced, as the banquet is a big draw for the dignitaries and the senior ranking flag officers. Next option, please, or next slide, sorry. This is the third option, the postponement. In light of current COVID-19 pandemic, budget and staffing challenges, the City Council may choose to postpone the Armed Forces Day Parade and celebration to May 19th, 2023, through May 21st, 2023. Not having the traditional Armed Forces Day program provides a savings of $219,423. And the last slide, please. And on this slide, you can see all 3 options together with the associated costs and savings. And that will conclude our presentation. Staff is available for answers or for questions if you have answers.
I would just like to quickly thank you for all the information here that we did not have in our standing committee meeting. This tells us everything that we questioned during that time that we didn't have available. So thank you for all that.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Matucci has a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I know there's a lot of work that goes into putting this together. It is truly sad times that we're going through. I mean, if there's any time, at least for the last, 3.5 years that I've been sitting here, any time in the history of me sitting here that we needed something like this for the public, it would probably be now. But I do have to be realistic with our budgeting and our shortages. Gosh, I never knew how many obstacles we would see this year. I was actually kind of excited to see it come back, but looking at the way things are rolling out, unfortunately, I'd probably be supporting a postponement of this, as sad as that makes me. So, but thank you guys for the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Clowney?
Thank you, and I also want to thank everybody for how much time everybody has put into this. I don't think there's a single person here that wants to not go forward with this, but under the circumstances, this is more safety officers on the street if we don't. I do want to ask one question, if I may, though, and I'm sorry I didn't ask it sooner, but in some of the comments, Village Runner and the Chamber are asking to support the 5K. Is there any thought on trying to go ahead with at least that portion, and then something like we did the previous years where we at least honor the people that have served?
I'm Chaparyan, City Manager. Excuse me, Councilman. We do plan on, should council want to postpone in our planning efforts, we would continue to honor, as we've done through social media and digital means. If council so chooses to explore a 5K option, we'll have to research what that would entail and perhaps come back to you with some options. Captain, if you have anything you want to add.
Captain Martin Vukotic, filling in for Chief Hart. Yes, we can definitely come back to you, do some research, and see what that option would look like.
Just as a reminder, we were able to run a successful turkey trot this year, so I imagine it'll be along the same logistics.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Chen?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I too was interested, but that's because I like 5Ks. If we can at least have a zero cost, that would even be better due to the registration. Last year when we postponed the parade, we put some kind of a video on. I think there was an expense associated with that. If we replay the same video we did last year, will we incur similar expenses?
Last year, we came with an item for $17,400, but because of the generosity of some pilots that flew, our actual cost was just under $4,000. And that went towards banners on the street to honor the branches, and banners on the bridge, as well as into labor for putting together the videos with the branches and the thank yous with the residents.
Councilman, I'm trying to City Manager, we could run a video, and I think the flyover was a community effort that's subject to the group wanting to do that. If I may also take a point to add, we do have the military banner recognition program, which is scheduled. I think 30-plus families will be submitting their banners. So we will continue to honor our past and present members of our community who served in the armed forces through our, I think, 10-plus years of military banner recognition. Hometown Heroes program. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Walzer?
Thank you. Well, like everyone else, I really appreciate the effort you people have gone to. And it's hard to measure what the real return on this investment is to the community and the city. I wish we could, determine what we would get back out of it. There's definitely a gain for us throughout our city and also internationally, through the fact that we as a city have an armed forces parade that's well respected. My own gut feeling is it's like all or none. I think a halfway approach wouldn't accomplish anything. I'm on the fence myself about it. I just wish there was a way to ascertain. I don't know if there's any comparison of what we might have lost with the postponement last year, but it was more expected, and we still can't foresee what the future is going to be. And I think the timing is such that you don't want to postpone it a few months, because then that kind of throws off what people are expecting. Again, I'm on the fence about it. Regarding having the 5K only, if you don't have the military here, they were a substantial contribution to participation in the 5K. I mean, if somebody wants to run a 5K on their own, that's, something they would have to work out. But I just don't see having the 5K alone and still have it be the Armed Forces Day, because you're not going to have the Armed Forces people here for that. I wish you had some input that you could give us to how you measure the goodwill and the notoriety that the city gets. But it is a big expense, and we are hurting for money, so I'm on the fence.
Councilmember Ashcraft.
I remember saying in our standing committee that I wanted to see this happen, but looking at all the numbers, the reality is I can't forego the amount of money that is in excess of what the budgeted item is. We're talking almost $200,000 in addition to what has been budgeted in the past. Staff is another thing, and I think that tonight we need to make the decision as to going forward, since our Marriott contract is up February 14th and they have extended it for us. We don't go forward and we go past that date, we give up a large percentage of money for nothing. So it has to be decided tonight, because we would be negligent if we just wasted money that way. I think a lot of the public will say, why aren't you going for the donation program? And as Ms. Lay said, we haven't advertised it yet, we don't have money into it yet. And for me to think about that, we should be asking for donations for the next year, not now, because it's money we can't bank on. It's money that we don't know if it would come in or not. And I don't think she gave us the numbers, but when we talked about it in our meeting, we were averaging possibly $10,000 to $12,000 is what the number was, which does not come close to what we need. So for all those reasons, I'm sorry, I have to eat my words in the standing committee, and I just cannot go forward with this as much as it breaks my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Griffin.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate staff's efforts on this. As a former chair of the Armed Forces Day Committee, I know what a huge project this is to pull off and pull off successfully. A couple of questions I had that weren't addressed in the presentation is, do we have an estimate of how many residents participate along the parade route over the years, kind of a general numbers? Is there any estimates that you can provide?
I think Sergeant Koenig would probably be the best to address that question, sir.
I think in previous years, we did do a count. It was estimated somewhere around 100,000 people on the parade route. That was several years ago, so we haven't done a count in the last year was in 2019. So probably a couple years before that we hadn't done one, but it was estimated about 100,000.
Yeah, thanks. I know this is a beloved event for our city. It's something that's got a long, long history. We have the notoriety as being one of the longest running Armed Forces Day celebrations in the country. But there are so many moving parts here that are really still a little foggy, in my opinion. The staffing issues are a little unclear. Certainly the budgetary issues sound like there are a lot of moving parts that haven't really accounted for all the inflationary issues that have come up. And I think a lot of those numbers were probably good guesstimates, but guesstimates nonetheless. And I would love to hear more from the public on how badly they want to see this happen. But considering our financial situation, all the moving parts, and even if we all decided to go ahead with it and make it happen, and then the unpredictability of COVID come up and blow the whole thing out of the water again, and we end up losing money because we've had to make investments that we can't get our money back on. So all those things make it really a risky gamble, in my opinion, to spend the kind of money to do this event, as much as I know we all would like to see it done and have the community celebrate with us and enjoy the spirit of the Armed Forces Day. I'm big time on the fence as well for so many reasons. So I'd like to hear more if the public is going to comment, what any of their comments would be.
Thank you, staff. I agree with what my colleagues have all mentioned. I am a military veteran, so it hits me especially hard. I've always enjoyed it as a citizen, as an elected official. Unfortunately, I think what was not brought up is the participation by the military. It's still questionable at this time, Obviously, it's cost, the COVID, our staffing issues, but then when you add into that the possible non-participation by the military, and with what's happening in the world right now, that could change at any moment too. So I think discretion is the better part of valor. I certainly would love to have this as my last parade, but there'll be other parades and there'll be other times to do things like that. Turn it over to the call center.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll be beginning to transfer calls. Portrap, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hello, believe it or not, I participated in this parade the past 2 or 3 times when it was on, and I enjoyed it, the nice weather and talking to people and watching Pat Furry wave at us and smiling like, whatever. And I very sorry this event's going to go away this year, but I'm going to understand because the COVID, we have to distance and everything. Maybe next year, he's not going to be the mayor next year. But anyway, whoever going to be, I can watch that wave at me. But other suggestion, pull the South Bay cities together. You are good friends and make a parade next year participating all the neighboring cities. Everybody can pitch in and it's going to be huge parade.
That caller was disconnected because our time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Sheila B., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
All this talk about police and so little context. You talk about staff shortages. How much of that is because you have at least a dozen officers on paid leave for sending bigoted messages? That includes Anthony Chavez, Brian Kawamoto, and Matthew Concanon. Plus the 3 officers who were fired, 2 of them for vandalizing an impounded vehicle, and 1 of them for shooting someone. Of course, there's also the at least 12 officers who sent these messages who are also on paid leave, 6 of them who killed people, 6 of them who were given awards. And that is what you consider oversight? Your department is imploding because of your misleadership, your failure, and your ineptitude. Maybe you should, create a civilian oversight commission of the Torrance Police Department when you failed to do anything about it. And also maybe fire all those officers who are getting taxpayers' money while they get a paycheck for being a documented bigot. Talking about cost, this is going to cost you $100,000 just for...
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Cat B., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
I just want to echo everything that the previous caller stated, and there are so many better ways that you could support the community, including your military residents, than to throw a vanity parade. I mean, especially for COVID protection right now, you should, at the very least, postpone, if not cancel this, and put that money into the needs of your community. And honestly, relying on police for safety just doesn't make any sense when you have so many police officers in your police force who've killed people. So many officers in your force who are on leave for murdering people, for bigotry. How is that safety? How can you rely on people who are bigoted and murderers for safety in any context? It doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of precious taxpayer dollars that could go toward actually caring for your residents. There are other ways you can celebrate and honor people than to...
That caller was disconnected. Moving on to the next caller. Sarah B., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Yeah, I'm also calling in to give some comments on the police staffing in regards to the Armed Service Parade. So it talks about various officers that are on leave. 30 officers were involved in the messaging scandal, and I'm wondering why it says only 20 officers are on leave, and was that because 12 received the text but didn't respond to them, but they also didn't report them, and in the context of messages talking about lynching people, silence of officers is just as violent and complicit to messages of violence, and they should also be on leave and fired. Also, it's pretty troubling if this scandal is affecting so many officers that it's causing staffing problems, and you're still not doing anything about it or anything about the scandal, and not showing the people of your city that you really care about their safety. And yeah, I just wanted to say that. Wanted to again voice my disappointment.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. TJ, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hello?
Yes, please proceed, sir.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It is just completely absurd, maybe the most absurd thing for this council to meet about and complain about, a lack of police force for your fucked up, ridiculous armed forces march. What the hell is that? Does that mean all cops will be armed? What world are you living in where this is an acceptable parade, just showing off your armed weapons? Maybe you could remind yourselves that you're understaffed because, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 members of your force were caught in a racist text scandal, and the other officers involved in that scandal weren't put on leave because they were complicit and never let anyone know what the messages were about. And I assume those are the messages who are going to...
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Mary Ann D., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Yeah, I want to uplift what the last four callers said. And I want to add on in thinking about how your officers perpetuate COVID in the way that they walk around unmasked and expose them, not only themselves, in which case, you know, they're probably, some of them are out probably because of COVID, and how they're exposing the community and putting the community in danger of COVID. So I yield my time.
Mayor, that caller disconnected herself. Moving on to the next caller. William A., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Good evening, council members. My message is don't be afraid of hosting such a great attended event. Based on the, I believe Sergeant Cody said it's about 100,000 people that attend or in the past have attended. Consider Pasadena held their Rose Parade. Long Beach is holding their Grand Prix, and they actually had one last year as well. And these are mega events. Let's just, I recommend you move forward. Consider polling your citizens to see if you're not sure how well attended it will be this time around. Consider, again, 100,000 attendees, give or take. If only a quarter of those spend $50, you're looking at $1,250,000. That's going to go back into the city. I mean, I think that's pretty good ROI on the 219,000. And then also, while I differ from Councilmember Walser about all or nothing,
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Torrance Patriot, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and I stand in solidarity with our police, firefighters, first responders, and our City Council. I'm just wondering, did you enlist National Guard to help? I don't know. Have some good insight on that. Also, EJ, BJ, or whatever, you need to go back to school, or your mama needs to slap you in the mouth for what you said about our military. And as for money and not having money and scandals, the BLM people have been bilked everybody out of $60 million. So, you know, maybe they ought to shut their mouths talking about any type of scandals, you know. Physician, heal thyself. Anyways, I would love the parade, if you can. Thanks. We love you.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Stephanie P., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Yeah, this budget is absurd.
We don't need police, that many police. And the fact that so many are on leave, it's your own fault. It's their own fault. The culture you have set up. Meanwhile, you want to drag police out there for an armed forces parade. It's telling because basically Torrance cops act like they're in the Army. They act like citizens are the enemy. Is this the message we want to continue to send? Maybe you're just saying the quiet part out loud. This is ridiculous. You guys are ridiculous. I yield my time.
That caller disconnected herself. Moving on to the next caller. Donna D., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hi, Donna Duperon. I, too, would like to thank staff for the detailed report. But I'd also like to really extend, on behalf of the Torrance Area Chamber of Commerce, our appreciation to the City of Torrance, Council, and the Torrance Police Department for their partnership in the past 4 years with the 5K for Freedom. It truly has been an amazing partnership to honor the veterans in our community. We'll stand ready whenever you give us the thumbs up. And again, just heartfelt appreciation to all of you. Thank you.
Moving on to the next caller. Maureen O., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hello, this is Maureen O'Donnell. I love the parade. However, there's an expense there at a time when we are asking to raise sales tax in our city. I don't think it's prudent to be spending money that way. I'm also concerned that the military may be called upon to go to the Middle East because of pending trouble there. Too many things are too iffy at this time. Sadly, I'd like to see it postponed until next year. Thank you.
Mayor, I believe we have one more caller coming in. Chicken, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
So the city of Torrance doesn't have enough money to honor the United States military in a parade. I got two simple solutions. Number one, why don't we just raise the sales tax to 35, 40%? Surely that could raise enough money to pay for this parade. And secondly, maybe we could get, since this is a parade for the United States military, maybe we could get Israel or the military-industrial complex to pay for the parade, considering that's who the military works for and fights the wars for. So just two, suggestions for the city council. Maybe they want to run it by the Israeli ambassador or their contacts at Boeing and Raytheon, or just put a ballot measure on, possible 35, 40% sales tax. Should raise the money, no problem. Thanks.
This concludes all the comments for items 9F. Thank you.
Thank you. How does the council wish to address this? Councilmember Walter.
Thank you. Having heard a lot of this, the rhetoric, I'm tending to lean towards postponing it because one of my biggest concerns is participation. And just as an example, I know of a number of large gatherings that have been planned, conventions, things like that. A lot of major companies chose not to send people for their own protection, and this is an uncertainty. So I think for the benefit of everyone and watching our budget, there's no guarantee of anything. The only guarantee is if we do postpone it, We aren't putting out the expense. So I'm leaning towards postponing it, because one of my biggest fears, I think we can pull it off from a safety standpoint. I just have a fear we aren't going to get the participation that we would like to have under current circumstances. So I lean towards postponing it.
Thank you. Councilmember Kalani.
Thank you, Mayor. I lean towards, well, I would recommend that it be postponed as well, but I would like to see us continue the conversation about some potential other activities like the 5K, maybe the flyovers, the video, and continuing to honor our heroes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chen.
Mayor, I'm ready to make a motion with the concurrence of, well, my motion is postpone the 2022 Armed Forces Day Parade, and staff follow with the action requests from Councilwoman Kalani.
Second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you again to staff for putting this all together for us. And thank you to the United States military for protecting us. Unfortunately, we cannot celebrate you this year the way we're accustomed to, but next year, the Torrance Armed Forces Day Parade will be back. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9A from the City Manager's Office to provide COVID-19 recovery update from staff.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor, members of the City Council, Aram, Chaparyan, City Manager. Today, Torrance is reporting 21,612 cases, which is 44 more. That's a big number, but it's significantly smaller than the three-digit numbers that we've been seeing. Unfortunately, our total deaths in the city of Torrance is up to 277. We are tracking the hospital stays, and those numbers are, I'm pleased to announce, improving on a daily basis. Having said that, the city of Torrance continues with our recovery reconstitution efforts in compliance with the protocols issued by the California Department of Health and LA County Department of Public Health. The order was revised, as you recall, January 10th to reflect the following changes, which went into effect on the 11th. Isolation and quarantine requirements are revised to mainly in line with the state public health officer revised guidelines for local health jurisdictions on isolation and quarantine of the general public, released on January 8th. Furthermore, on January 5th, the California Department of Public Health extended the requirement for universal masking indoors statewide from January 15, 2022 to February 15th. While California will end its indoor masking requirement for vaccinated people next week, local governments can continue their own indoor masking requirements. And since Torrance falls within LA County Health, LA County has expressed that they will intend to keep the county indoor masking orders in place beyond the state deadline. The county has also mentioned that there's a threshold of 7 consecutive days of 2,500 or less hospitalizations before we move on to the less restrictions on masking. In regard to testing, that was a challenge initially as tests have increased in the marketplace. There's been an increase in demand. There's one active COVID-19 site located at Delamo Fashion Center. Operating hours are 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The site provides rapid antigen, rapid antibody, and PCR testing. And the number for the facility is 877-219-8378. There are also 3 other testing sites. One is at the YMCA of Torrance South Bay at 2900 Sepulveda Boulevard. The site provides PCR testing. Appointments can be scheduled online at www.heal360.com. There are also 2 CVS pharmacies located at 4235 PCH and 1303 West Sepulveda Boulevard, and both offer antigen testing. Appointments can be scheduled online. As I said in the past, most city operations were impacted significantly through Omicron. However, pleased to announce we have returned to full operations, and then we're following all the LA County health officer orders that require masking indoors, vaccination status, and testing. The health and safety of our employees, families, and community members is of paramount importance of the city. And I would like to thank again our staff, residents, for your continued efforts to keep our numbers of positive cases to a minimum. Myself, our KD1, the OC Director, and Fire Chief are available for any questions you may have. Thank you, Your Honor, Council.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Councilmember Chen?
Thank you, Mayor. It's not much of a question. Just want to express my disappointment that LA County is not opting to follow along with the state's change on February 15th. A county of roughly 10 million, I think, is difficult to have a one-size-fits-all. And I think I just want to share that. If anyone from the LA County Public Health is listening, please seriously consider following along with the state's change February 15th, any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Nobody else wish to be heard? I'll take a motion to accept and file. I'm sorry? Okay, I forgot about them.
Call center, can you please patch in callers for item 9B? I'm sorry, 9A?
There are no callers for
Nope,
9A
okay,
at the moment.
Thank you.
Seeing there are no callers, then I will take a motion to accept and file.
I move to accept and file.
Second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9B from Fire and General Services and Transit to authorize change orders to furnish gasoline and diesel fuel. From staff.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jason Bodier, General Services. Item 9B is a recommendation from Fire, General Services, and Transit. City Council authorized change orders with Merrimack Energy Group of Long Beach, California, to extend the term of service and furnish gasoline and diesel fuel for an additional 2-year period beginning March 1st, 2022, and ending February 29th, 2024. This option to renew was included in the original 3-year contract, and our existing purchase orders currently have available balances that we expect to provide sufficient funding moving forward. Thank you, and staff is available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jason. Are there any questions from the council? I see none. Anybody from the public?
Yes, we have one caller, transferring him now. Orchab, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
No, I'm very happy that you guys have 325,000 gallons of fuel ordered and used and this and that. And I'm happy my local fire department contribute to this usage and use it up as much as possible. As you could see on my videos, they're going for this sightseeing trips, not just R94 last week. I also videotaped Engine 94 also going to the beach and all around town. If we have so much gasoline and they can afford it, maybe we should look into it, reducing it more than 19%. Maybe we should park them at the station where they're supposed to be, instead of using all this extra fuel. 325,000 gallons? Man, unbelievable.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up, and there aren't any more callers for items 9B at the call center. Thank you.
Thank you. The public's been heard. Council has been heard. Take a motion to authorize change order to furnish gasoline and diesel fuel.
Motion to authorize change orders to furnish gasoline and diesel fuel.
I second that motion.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9C from the City Manager's Office to adopt a resolution amending memorandum of understanding for employees represented and covered by Torrance Municipal Employees, AFSCME Local 1117. Ms. Wan.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Katie Wan with the City Manager's Office. Item 9C is a recommendation of the city manager that city council adopt a resolution amending the Torrance Municipal Employees, TME, AFSCME Local 1117 Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, to add the positions of transit equipment attendant, transit mechanic, and senior transit mechanic. This is a companion item to item 8D, which your honorable body approved earlier this evening. By way of this item, staff is seeking approval to add these 3 positions to the TME AFSCME MOU. There is no cost associated with this item, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? I see none. Is there anyone called into the call center?
No calls in the call center, Mayor. Thank you.
Well, then we'll take, may we have a number and title, Ms. Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor, this is resolution number 2022-17. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Torrance, California, amending resolution number 2019-38, setting forth changes regarding hours, wages, and working conditions for employees represented by Torrance Municipal Employees, AFSCME Local 1117.
Move to adopt resolution number 2022-17.
I second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9D as in David, also from the city manager's office, to adopt the resolution amending resolution 2019-84 to add language regarding the PORAC Retirement Medical Trust Joinder Agreement to the Fire Safety Management Memorandum of Understanding. Ms. Wan?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Item 9D is a recommendation of the city manager that City Council adopt a resolution amending Resolution 2019-84 to add language regarding the PORAC Retiree Medical Trust Joinder Agreement to the Fire Safety Management Employees Memorandum of Understanding. The purpose of the agreement is so that current fire safety management members, who are battalion chiefs, who are former Torrance Firefighters Association members, may remain active in the medical expense reimbursement plan of the PORAC Retiree Medical Trust. To formally enter into this agreement, Resolution 2019-84 setting forth wages, hours, and working conditions for fire safety management members needs to be amended to add language regarding the PORAC Joinder Agreement to the Fire Safety Management MOU. There is a supplemental to this item which reflects a revised heading to the resolution before you tonight. There is no cost associated with this item, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? I see none. Is anyone called to the call center?
No calls in the call center, Mayor. Thank you.
Having no questions from the council and no calls in the call center, Madam Clerk, may we have a resolution, number and title?
Yes, Your Honor. This is resolution number 2022-18, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Torrance, California, amending resolution number 2019-84 to add language regarding the PORAC Retiree Medical Trust Joinder Agreement to the Fire Safety Management Memorandum of Understanding.
I move to adopt resolution 2022-18.
Second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9E as in Edward from Community Services to provide direction regarding options for 2022 Cultural Services and Torrance Theater Company summer programming. Mr. Lohr.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, John LaRock, Community Services Department. This evening, we're before you to discuss the summer programming by the Torrance Theater Company. As you know, since 1999, the Torrance Theater Company has produced a highly popular summer musical at the Armstrong Theater. The summer musical is a signature event for the Cultural Division. Productions are very popular, and there is a supplemental item for this item tonight with comments from the public in support. The timing of this report is because we have to start advancing both the licensing and pre-production for the summer musical. And so we were here to report on this production because of its signature status and the expense which is subsidized within the budget. I will point out that although we are fiscally constrained at this time, the production is currently represented in the budget, although it does come at a certain level of subsidy, approximately $30,000 based on expenses and anticipated ticket sales. Were the council interested in not subsidizing the summer musical at that rate, staff could explore alternative summer programming, which would come at a reduced cost, but have much less offsetting revenue based on the lack of ticket sales at the box office. The alternative programming could include concerts in the park, a summer production at the Cabrillo Downtown Theater, or other program offerings across our community to keep the Torrance Theater Company in the public eye throughout the summer months. The staff recommendation, therefore, tonight is that you provide direction to the staff, to proceed with the advancement and production of the 2022 summer musical, or that you provide direction that we pursue alternate programming this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaRock. Are there any questions from the council? Councilmember Griffith?
Thank you, Mayor. Considering we just saved $220,000, we really do need to be doing some nice things for the public, and I think that this is something that's much more controllable than the Armed Forces Day Parade, and I would like to see the Torrance Theater Company program continue and be subsidized for the benefit of the public and to continue to keep the programs alive. I'd also really like to see, as I've mentioned in previous council meetings, that we get more involved in concerts in the park. We have this fabulous facility that we just aren't using. And I think one of the suggestions I made was to get community participation in funding that. I'm sure there are many organizations in our very bustling business community who would be willing to help sponsor some of the concerts in our park, and very low cost benefit to the public, and really starts using our facilities there that we've paid a lot of money to build and we're really not using, and I'd like to see that ramped up as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Councilmember Walzer.
Thank you. I'm highly supportive of the programs we have. I would like to see us exploring sponsorship capabilities where they can get recognition and also provide funds for our programs. And basically, I do support it.
Thank you. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that I've been a season ticket holder for many, many years, I think since the inception of our downtown program. Attended all of the summer musicals, and I appreciate it, and I think they're a wonderful asset for our community. And I'd like to even see more programming, because art is the heart of our community. And as my colleagues say, we have to give something to the community, and it was in the budget, as was mentioned. So I would like to see us continue on and do the summer musical and do our best, working around COVID situations and all the other problems that we've been discussing this evening and for the last 2 years. Anybody else? Anybody on the call?
No callers at the call center for this item, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. How's the council wish to proceed?
I'd like to move to go ahead and support the Torrance Theater Company efforts that were previously budgeted, and give you a nod yes for that, in addition to adding any concerts in the park program we can possibly arrange with some potential budget savings we just created for it.
Second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, and thank you, staff, for being here. And thank you for the programming that we do have out of our Community Services Department. That takes us to Council Orals number 2. Anybody in the call center? Well, before we go there, I was remiss. I missed the one in the morning in the Council Orals first, or announcements. Our clerk has an announcement, a very important announcement.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to remind Torrance residents that the City of Torrance will be holding their general municipal election on Tuesday, June 7th. The nomination period opens next Monday, February 14th, by appointment and closes March 10th. And I do need to note that the appointments for February 14th, 15th, and 16th are all booked. Appointments are currently available Thursday, February 17th and Friday, February 18th. Please call the city clerk's office at 310-618-2870 or email cityclerk@torranceca.gov to schedule an appointment. Election information may be found on the City of Torrance website, on the city clerk's webpage under elections. Thank you, Your Honor.
And I'm so sorry I missed that the earlier announcements. My bad. To the public, 8:15.
Patricia J., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Yes, hello. I wanted to tell you that I keep hearing people putting down everything you do when I want you to know the majority of our citizens appreciate all your hard work and efforts on our behalf, and to thank you very much for them. Thank you.
Mayor, that caller disconnected herself. Moving on to the next caller. Ron S., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hi, I'm a resident of the Skyline Mobile Home Park in Torrance. It's a senior community. After the death of the previous owner, the park was purchased by Sanders Property Company, and management was taken over by Star Management. Doing a little research on past history with them, we found out that they have a history of working together and have a known track record of predatory behavior. They immediately raised our rents by $200 a month, saying that was due to the property tax increase. But our understanding is they can have additional increases as they see fit. These homes are the only unsubsidized affordable housing in Torrance. We need a rent stabilization ordinance to protect our vulnerable senior residents, some of whom are 100.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Rocky, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now. Rocky, are you still on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
Your 1 minute starts now.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to uplift the fact that it's amazing that you still have not created an independent civilian oversight commission. You absolutely need to do so, and the community demands that you do. We also demand that you fire all of the officers who are involved in that grotesque messaging scandal, especially the officers who are responsible for the murder of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, officers Anthony Chavez and Matthew Concannon. It's vital that you fire these officers, because if you don't, it's proving the fact that Torrance really is Torrance, Mississippi, and that it is the most anti-black city council in that area. You need to prove to your constituents, prove to your community members that you care, that you give a shit about their lives. You need to create an independent civilian.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Mina H., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hello, I am a physician who served at Harborview Medical Center. So a lot of my patients have been dealing with COVID-19, obviously, but another issue that they frequently deal with is racism and also feeling threatened by police violence. And I read in the LA Times recently about the messaging scandal, the racist and anti-Semitic comments that were made by your officers. And frankly, I demand that you create a civilian oversight commission. You fire all the officers involved in the messaging scandal, particularly the officers responsible for the murder of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, officers named Anthony Chavez and Matthew Concannon. This is of utmost importance. If you really want to support the citizens who live in Torrance, and you want to support us physicians, then you would help our patients by creating this civilian oversight committee.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Jeff P., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Thank you, Council and Mayor, for hearing me.
I live at Skyline Mobile Home Park, and we recently have been purchased by a company that has a history of a profit-first mentality for them at the expense of the citizens that have lived in Torrance for decades. This park has been existent since the 60s, and the residents here have lived here for decades. Interlopers from another county get the loans, they buy the property, they can charge what they want. We need protection in the form of a rent stabilization ordinance. It prevents gouging. Thank you.
Thank you. While the caller's still there, may take a little liberty, is that we're bringing back an item in the short term to talk about rental stabilization at a mobile home park. So I just wanted to, we've had a couple calls earlier and now, so I want the people who are now listening to understand we're going to be doing it. Okay.
John R., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now. John R., are you still on the phone? John?
Hey, John.
Yeah, am I here?
Your 1 minute starts now, sir.
All right. My name is John Ramirez, and I'm calling in and complaining about some deputies that are related by gang affiliation to the gang members that molested my daughter. But they are the ones threatening me. Your deputies, Deputy Kessinger and Chief Burge that just retired, her family members are the Burge family and the Contreras that are threatening my life of showing up to court and telling on them. You know, I know what happened with the Andre D. Mitchell case. My number is 310-755-4387 to the mother of Andre D. Mitchell. There's a lot of information I have to tell you about that these fucking people won't leave me alone. You know, all these people in that department, they know what I'm talking about.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Bree P., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Thank you. I'm calling in solidarity with Sherlyn Haynes, the family of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, and Black Lives Matter to demand accountability from the city of Torrance for the killing of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell. Christopher did not present a threat to officers and should be alive today. Tonight, I'm demanding that you fire all Torrance police officers involved in the racist text messaging scandal, particularly the officers responsible for the murder of Christopher, which are Officers Anthony Chavez and Matthew Concannon. And two, I'd like to demand that you establish a civilian oversight body with power to investigate the Torrance Police Department. It is ridiculous that you do not have that yet because the police cannot oversight themselves. Thank you.
That caller disconnected herself. Moving on to the next caller. Luke M., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hi, my name is Luke Moscow. I'm calling on behalf of the South Bay Black Sheep RC Club at Oneida Park. I just wanted to let you guys know that I was in touch with Dolores at LA Metro with the Green Line Extension Project, and she will be including upon their review coming up in March about the RC track being at Oneida Park and how that might affect the alternative route. Other than that, thank you guys for your time. We appreciate it, and we look forward to getting this agreement made up. Thank you.
That caller disconnected himself. Moving on to the next caller. Sally M., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
I am appalled to hear what these people are saying. I can't believe that you are allowing officers who sent these messages to be on paid leave. They should be fired. This is absolutely disgusting. This does not make me feel safe. I get why they're angry. Some of these officers even killed people, and you gave them awards and raises? What are you thinking? They bring up great points. Are you not only doing it because they're black people asking you to do this? Well, maybe you'll listen to me. Knowing this information now, I am moved to support these demands to create a civilian oversight commission of the Torrance Police Department. And I demand that you fire every single one of those officers. I don't care if they just sent them. I don't care if they just received them or if they sent and received them. It's all so wrong, and shame on you. I can't believe you have...
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Torrance Patriot, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hi, everybody. I gave you my greeting before. First thing I want to say is thank you for keeping our city safe, and thank you for all of your hard work. I know it sometimes may not sound like it, but we all appreciate it. When you guys now, since we are not going to have the parade, please don't spend all the money and before, like, the fireworks, because, you know, that's something I want you to keep in your back pocket, too, because we want fireworks. So let's save what we can for fireworks. All right. Pork chop, you don't know everything that the fire department does. Who knows what those guys were doing? They were probably checking out, I don't know, the streets for downed trees. You don't know. BLM, you black-lighting Marxists. You know, these police officers do so much for our city, and they deserve due process.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Gina V., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
It is 2022. When is Torrance going to reckon with its race problem? You've got rampant racism in your police department, and you double down on it by giving them awards and paid leave and accolades. Meanwhile, you have families and people suffering and people frightened of driving through your sundown town. The time is now. Folks like Torrance Patriot who want to make assertions about, you know, who we are calling in and demanding this, we are Angelinos. I have to go to the airport. I have to drive through Torrance. I don't even want to be anywhere near your city when I know the racism that's rampant in its police department and the fact that there's nobody holding them accountable. Sister Sherilyn and Christopher DeAndre Mitchell deserve more. Black lives do matter, and we're going to make them matter. And beyond you reckoning...
That caller was disconnected because their time was up. Moving on to the next caller. Clara C., you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Hello, Torrance City Council. I'm present today in solidarity with Sister Sherilyn and her family to get justice in the name of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, who was murdered in 15 seconds by the Torrance Police Department. I have two demands for you. One, to create an independent civilian oversight commission of the Torrance Police Department. And two, to fire all the officers involved in the messaging scandal, especially Anthony Chavez and Matthew Concannon. It is very atrocious that the people who are charged to protect and serve are the people that are blatantly corrupt. Thank you.
That caller disconnected herself. Moving on to the next caller. Jayla, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now. Jayla, are you on the call?
Hello, yes. Thank you, Torrance City Council, for hearing my demands. I'm calling in solidarity with the family of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell and Black Lives Matter to demand two items. First, that we create a civilian oversight commission for the Torrance Police Department to ensure basic checks and balances and accountability. And two, that we fire all officers involved in the messaging scandal, particularly the officers responsible for the murder of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, Officers Anthony Chavez and Matthew Concannon. This is again in solidarity with the family of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell and Black Lives Matter. Thank you for hearing my demands.
Esther Bunch, you are now unmuted. Your 1 minute starts now.
Well, my 1 minute starts because the racism has been starting a long ass damn time. We need to put a damn civilian oversight commission over the Torrance Police Department, like the LA County Grand Jury told you all back in 2017 and 2018 LA County Grand Jury report. Only reason why you haven't acted upon it because you enjoy Torrance police officers killing black people. So I say fuck you and go fuck yourselves. We're not going to stop. We'll keep showing up. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Justice will come, and it's coming. And I'm glad you're feeling it. The pressure of the people, the power of the people is shutting y'all bitch asses down. Civilian oversight now. Civilian oversight yesterday. Civilian oversight now. And fire those racist-ass officers, all of them, including Matthew Conkin and Anthony Chavez. Fire them.
That caller was disconnected because their time was up, and this concludes City Council Oral Communications number 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Council Orals starts with Councilmember Chen.
First of all, I want to say thank you, Katie. And for this coming weekend, go Rams. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of the Torrance Theater Company earlier, the folks at the Torrance Theater Company asked me to make an announcement that they want to remind you that there are still seats available for the last 5 shows of Holmes and Watson. It's a perfect whodunit. So if you're interested, go to torrancetheatercompany.com, order your tickets today. In addition to rooting for the Rams this Sunday, I want to remind everybody that love is in the air, and Monday is Valentine's Day, so I wish everybody a very happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Councilmember Kalani.
Thank you, Mayor. We had to make some tough decisions tonight to postpone our beloved Armed Forces Day Parade, and fortunately to keep our theater company with funding for its performances. So please join the theater company as a season ticket holder or go see their events. I have seen some of them. They're really wonderful. It's always a good time. But I'd also like you to please consider going online to the city's website and watch the informative presentation about the pension and the informative presentation about the city's current challenges, its financial situation, and the potential tax ballot measure. They're very informative, they're very transparent, and the city's always available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Councilmember Matucci.
Thank you, Mayor. I got nothing tonight. Good night, everyone.
Councilmember Walzer.
Well, I'll echo the go Rams, and love is in the air, so make everyone have Valentine's. Thank you.
Councilmember Ashcraft.
Thank you. Valentine's Day is always special at our house, so happy Valentine's Day. And I have to say, I will watch the Rams. Somehow this year, I became a sports addict.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there is a little bit of football in the air in Los Angeles area. I noticed also that there was a bet between bakeries, one in Cincinnati and one in Torrance, and $2,500 goes to the YMCA if the Rams win, and Kurt Rosberg will be bringing that home, hopefully. I thank everybody for your active participation and interest in staying informed. Your input really helped shape our community. We made some difficult decisions, as was mentioned earlier. The Armed Forces Day Parade is a legacy in our community, and it will return, as I mentioned earlier. It's something that's special to a special city. And as Councilmember Kalani pointed out, there's lots of information on our city webpage explaining not rhetorical information, but true information about what the financial status of our city is, why we have to actually cancel certain things that we really, really appreciate and love. But don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to people who are just telling you what their thoughts are about things that they may have heard from somebody else, secondhand, third hand, fourth hand, or maybe it's just a philosophical thought process. And look at the facts and look at the city that you live in, that you work in, that you visit. We're pretty proud of what we present, and sometimes there's the problem with that is our curbside appeal doesn't belie all the problems that we've incurred since 2008, when the financial situation in our whole country went really in trouble. Banks failed, and mortgages were failing, and homes were foreclosed on, and we weathered that storm all the way up until the present time. And You know, it was just 2 years ago that this pandemic hit us, you know? March 1st was a difficult date in 2020, and we had a cyber attack that shut down our city entirely. When I say our city, I mean your government because of that. And we were up and running in no time because of the expertise of our staff. And within days, we were hit with the pandemic and a close down of our economy, and for the safety reasons, whether you agree with it or not. But we're coming back, and we're coming back stronger than we were, and hopefully you'll agree with us after you listen to the real facts. This weekend, it's just 20 minutes away on a good day. Probably on Super Bowl Sunday, it's going to be 3 hours to get from Torrance to Florence. The Super Bowl will be taking place at SoFi Stadium, a great place. If you're going there, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. But whatever the outcome will be, people will be celebrating. And I want to remind everyone to celebrate and drink responsibly. Have a designated driver if you're out there drinking, or if you go to the game or a tailgate or a party. Try to gather outdoors, follow your masking mandates, wash your hands frequently. We don't need another surge of COVID. COVID continues to be ever present in our community. As was mentioned earlier, 277 people who formerly lived in our city, were residents of our city, have passed away due to COVID. And they're in our thoughts every day. We certainly miss all of them. And for those who have a loved one they lost, just know that we're thinking about you. For the latest updates on COVID, you can follow us on social media, and for daily updates, tune into City Cable or torranceca.gov and watch live COVID-19 Today, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. and weekends in Torrance, which airs every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 2 o'clock p.m. And remember, as I mentioned at the beginning, our Torrance Serves volunteer service hours. Pledge page is still open. Pledge your hours at torranceca.gov/serve to show the community your commitment. Whatever your volunteer is, whether it's your church, your community group, your neighborhood association, a service club, perhaps at your school or your children's school. Calculate those hours. Let us know how much you're doing. The first year we looked for 100,000 hours and we beat that. The second year we looked for 125,000 hours and we beat that. The third year we went for 150,000 hours and we beat that. We're looking at 175,000 hours this year, and I'm certain we're going to beat it with your help and your input. And finally, for the sweethearts of all ages, dear friends, family, and loved ones, have a happy Valentine's Day. Thank you and good night. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn tonight's city council meeting to Tuesday, February 15th, 2022 at 5 p.m. for closed session, with the regular meeting commencing at 6:30 p.m.
I second.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Good night, everyone. We'll see you next week.